And Salty does not take shortcuts. So these are videos he makes. That 10-minute interview, maybe he could probably put that video out in 15 minutes if he wanted to, but not
No.
Salty. Like those, he puts love into those.
It's true. Thank you. It's a lot. It's a lot, but it's a labor of love. Sorry, go ahead, Max.
No, I was just gonna continue on what Zach was gonna say, and this, this isn't me shilling. This is just a appreciate Salty stream for the first 15 minutes or so
Thank you.
of this stream, because yeah, seriously, this is one. It's an original idea. It's creating something, and it's also involving fans. Two things that none of our properties have been able to do for the past 6 years, and
Bingo.
yet you have been able to do that with these short videos that people can chew on. They can watch at their own leisure, and they're well done. And it's simple. It is people being prompted to talk about something that they love, and you get a great product from that. So
Yeah.
I think what you're doing here, man, is very important. I hope that they gain the traction that I think they deserve, and we're here for the ride.
Mm-hmm.
So I was born in 1993 and had the luxury of being able to see Tolkien in the film version from Peter Jackson's 2001 trilogy, and that was my actual first introduction to it. Which I know some people will say, "Oh, it wasn't the books," but I actually loved that because it gave me a visual representation of the Lord of the Rings, of these heroes, of this world. And so then I could look back on the books and then like have the books as reference, and utilize those as well as the movies. But so yeah, my first introduction to Tolkien was from the Peter Jackson films. I think it is the passion specifically from Tolkien himself into the characters and into the legendarium and into the world. I think that's really important. He really took very special care with each one of his words and each one of his characters and each one of his settings. Like everything was very purposeful and driven behind it. And I don't think anything didn't have meaning. I think that everything that he wrote had purpose. So I think that's, as a creative, I think there's something to be said about that in your art, in your work, to have everything be very purposeful. I think there's something beautiful about that. As far as the story itself, it's just the representation of what the hero's journey looks like, and we see that in almost all the characters. Whether you are trying to be more heroic like Aragorn, who is this kind of figure who's this like kingly figure, or even down to the littlest one of us that is like more of a hobbit. It just shows that anyone can change the world, whether you have the status of, maybe potentially being of the Dunedain, or maybe you don't have that status. Maybe you're a gardener in Hobbiton, and yet you still are able to change the world with your actions. And I thought that that's really cool that he had that for almost every character. As you can see the heroism with each one. Of course, initially I would say Aragorn, because I think I would love to be more like him. I would want to take on the character traits of nobility, honor, humility at points. But realistically, I think I probably would resonate more with Sam or one of the hobbits, in that they have to overcome at so many points throughout the story like immense fear, but by doing so, they show great courage. And so I think more often than not, in the real world, we experience great fear or great struggle or just uncertainty about what's next. And so I think more people probably would resonate with hobbits, because they're your everyday man or woman. They are us. We see these figures through the eyes of the hobbits, which is kind of cool. So like I said, as much as I would love to say, oh yeah, I resonate totally with Aragorn, I see myself as this kingly figure, I definitely think I'm more of a Sam, or would even hope to be considered as a Sam, because even he is able to overcome and show great courage in times of struggle. The most faithful adaptation for me, and I don't think it's necessarily a nostalgia thing, I do think it's the Peter Jackson films, solely based off of the care that they took in making it, and just how much passion they put behind it, because there are inaccuracies in the films, and yet what they were trying to portray is what's most meaningful. The themes throughout Tolkien's books, I think, came across very heavily within those films, and I think that's what's most important. And Peter Jackson says it himself, they never tried to make a film about Peter Jackson's vision. They tried to make a film focused on Tolkien's vision. And I think that says a lot about them, to be humble enough to sacrifice their time and their effort and their money to tell someone else's story, not to tell their own. I think that says a lot about Peter Jackson, and a lot about the producers and the showrunners and the actors and the costume designers and the cinematographer, like everyone from the ground up. Everyone had a very beautiful passion behind the project. So maybe it's because I saw it that was the first introduction of Tolkien that I saw, that I'm a bit biased. But after watching all the other, Bakshi films and whatnot, and even The Hobbit that came out later, I still think the Lord of the Rings trilogy, it's what anyone can aspire to hope to achieve when adapting something from a novelization. At first, I was somewhat just kind of curious, but now I'm much more apprehensive. Whenever you hear something like this being taken on by a corporation and not a creative, you hesitate. And I rightfully so, and I think that's acceptable for us to do. Especially with things that we love so much, I don't think there's any reason for us to hesitate when seeing someone take on an adaptation. But so many times within the marketing, and I don't know if this is just marketing or if this is the actual how the actual showrunners feel, or how Amazon actually feels, but there have been so many inaccuracies with not just the lore, but how they're promoting this. Because at first it was an adaptation of Tolkien, but now it's based on the works of Tolkien. So, they're changing their tune, and they're also kind of changing how they're promoting this, and that's what really worries me. Is that, like I said, at first you're curious about how they're going to go about it, but then you start hearing the marketing, and you start seeing some of the behind the scenes, or you start hearing more and more of Tolkien's name, but not seeing Tolkien. And there's that disconnect between actually hearing, but then seeing. And when you don't have that, it's disorienting. So at first, like I said, more curiosity, but now it's a lot of apprehension. I hope that kind of answers the question as best as I could.
has ever. This is Salty Texas Sea. I am Corey DB. Thanks so much for watching. If you like what you've seen and heard, please hit that thumbs up button. If you haven't subscribed, I'd love to have you on board. That way you know, and we have things like live streams, which we are going to be doing every Tuesday evening. Take care. I hope you're having a great 2022.